Alrighty, we are back. We are live. That is right. This is the Race Guru Thunder Hour. And I am your lead host for today, Sean Engel. You can find me on social media platforms at SeanE247. And with me here once again is the Kingfish himself, the Kingfish of DFS and Betting over from fantasyguru.com, DFS Marlin, Mark Hogan. Welcome back to the show, Mark. It's great to be doing this with you again, bud.
Sean, good to be back. Fun racing last week. It was nice to talk going into the last week, and man, the weekend delivered. Lots of fun racing to open up the season. Lots of drama coming out of those races, and similar style racing coming up this week, but it's going to be a little bit different. So I'm excited to see how we're going to attack the DFS slates and our betting plans for this week.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of fun to be had over there, over at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Although they call it EchoPark Speedway since about June of last year. So I'm still getting used to the name change, but in my heart, it's always going to be Atlanta Motor Speedway there, Mark.
I know. I was trying to get used to that too. I thought we were at COTA for a second when I was looking at it, but yeah, I had to remember that as well.
Yeah. But it is the same exact schedule as last year when we started out with Daytona and then Atlanta. I know for years, Rich Mileto and I, we talked about how we would never see 2 straight weeks of super speedway racing to open up the season right here. But here we are today. Times have certainly changed.
I enjoy it because it's kind of like it's kind of by disguise, though, in the sense, it'll be a little bit different this week than last week to a certain degree. So I think you can't approach this week exactly the same. It's going to be a slightly different adjustment. We've got more laps, so we have to consider lap leaders just a little bit more. It's not as it's going to be an interesting race. We'll dive into it with the track and everything else. But I know we got some initial shout outs here to begin the show here with, I would imagine, for the website.
Yeah, I mean, we got to make sure the website is properly promoted. I mean, they're letting us have the show, so there you go. So we are a part of fantasyguru.com, and they cover many different sports, not just NASCAR. They cover MLB, basketball, football, soccer, esports, hockey, horse racing even. You name it, Fantasy Guru has it covered. You can go forth over there. You can get their MLB guides over at fantasyguru.com right now. You can get, which features exclusive content from the Oracle himself, Ray Flowers, as well as the other team, including Scott Bondar and Patio Joe, the rest of the MLB crew over there at fantasyguru.com. We also have deals for the many various packages that allow you to get exclusive content for all the sports covered at fantasyguru.com, including MVP, Platinum, VIP, or all-in packages. Some of these packages, such as the MVP, for example, are currently discounted. So you can go forth and get these packages at a reduced price, and you're covered for the whole year. I believe the MVP package is on its last week for its special discount, where it's only $99.99. So $100 gets you everything but the football and baseball for an entire year over at fantasyguru.com. Really a great deal, if I do say so myself there, Mark. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, 100%, Sean. I mean, spring sports is a huge opportunity to cash in. It's a great opportunity to build your bankroll rolling into next NFL season. MLB with Ray Flowers and the MLB team is spot on. It is gold. I normally get I would average 1 tournament win in MLB a year. So I normally like to consume their content for the first full month and then really start playing a lot of tournaments from there. So highly recommend it. MLB DFS is where it's at. And on top of that, we got UFL, of course, this spring. I'll be rolling out all kinds of UFL content starting in the March month. So got March Madness. I'm sure we'll be covering college basketball to a plenty degree come March. So this is a great time to get in, given what type of sports are happening over this next month or so.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, especially if you're a sports fan, you want to get involved and you want to find some opportunities to make money by fantasy or through betting. you got opportunities surely a coming. That is for sure. So that is that. Now, before we continue on here, let's just have a reminder that we are live right now on Fantasy Guru and through YouTube right here. So if you are new to our show, you can go forth and leave comments to interact with us live. We'll be seeing them and throwing some of them up on the stream as we go forth across the show. If you don't know how to leave comments on fantasyguru.com, you can just tap the screen where our faces are. The chat icon will pop up there, and you hit that, and boom, you'll be able to see the chat across the side and be able to leave comments right as we're playing. Or if you're watching through YouTube, you can go forth and just put comments there over at Elite Plus Network. That is where we are streaming. Yeah. What's good chat right there from our very own DFS Barlin right here, testing out the surfaces. He's showing you it works. It really does work. Really
Look,
cool.
man, I got a teenage daughter, so I'm trying to learn all the terms, and that's one of the in phrases or terms right now. So
What's good, chat? What's good? Man, that would hit even more if we were on Twitch, but we're not quite there yet. Maybe we'll get there. Maybe we'll get there one day. Mickey's 5713 on YouTube says, left turn, left turn. There is going to be a lot of left turning over this weekend at Atlanta. That is for sure. But before we get into Atlanta, let's talk a little bit about Daytona here. There's been a lot of reaction towards the first race of the season. We actually had 3 races over the course of the season. Both the Truck Series, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and the Cup Series all had their opening races at Daytona to open up the season right there, Mark. So I'm just going to go forth and start out with this. What was your overall thought on the Daytona weekend here with all 3 of these races?
So highly entertaining. I thought what was really interesting was the 3 teams that won in each of the series. I think Rich had sent that over at some point this weekend. We're all big name players in the lawsuit against NASCAR this past off season. So as bizarre and coincidental as that is, pretty fascinating to see that happen. Really cool to see Tyler Reddick win it. That was a very obviously wild and chaotic final lap there. There's a lot of commentary on the social media about half throttle racing, and a lot of fans kind of digging into the drivers and NASCAR, and even I think some alum. I want to say it was Mark Martin coming out and pointing out how they would never go half throttle, and they hit like a record time for the speeds they were recording back when he drove. I can't remember the exact quote that he had on social media, but pretty fascinating to see how the outrage with half throttle racing and fuel saving and all of that. And then Denny Hamlin coming out and saying the other day how handling in these cars are too easy, and he'd like to see them make it a little bit harder for drivers to, create more challenges, I guess. But I thought it was a fun, entertaining weekend as a whole. Trucks, I was about to say Xfinity, but the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, all of every race had some fascinating kind of developments there. So really enjoyed it. What about you?
Yeah, overall, I think it was a really solid start to the season for all 3 of these series. I do think that the Truck Series may have put on the best show overall, but I do think that the Cup Series race was not far behind overall, especially with how the spectacle ended up there. It's not every day where you get to see not one, but 2 wrecks in order to end the race right there and have them still come back to green in that Cup race, Mark. And then so that Truck Series race coming down to mere inches with Chandler Smith winning it 4 wide right there, Mark.
Yeah,
that was one heck of a sight, I'd say.
And Austin Hill in the least exciting race, but dominating on that front and controlling the race in its entirety. And we were going back and forth in the Discord on Saturday talking about how it's risky, obviously, to play a guy that starts on the pole on a super speedway, but it ended up working out because of his success and how well he does on these types of tracks. So we're probably going to see more of him going into this weekend in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series.
Yeah, especially because for Austin Hill, Atlanta is a home race for him, so he's going to have even more motivation in order to do well and win again. We said it on the show before. Whenever drivers come into races on their home tracks, they get that extra motivation to perform even better in front of their hometown crowd, in front of people they know, just because it means that much more to them on a personal level.
And all kinds of drama. I mean, plenty of drama around Natalie Decker and hitting Sam Mayer 16 seconds after the caution came up. So lots of criticism on that front. So man, one race in, and all kinds of chaos, all kinds of drama, and plenty of exciting racing. So it was a great start to the season, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Man. And Tyler Reddick winning for 2311, big storyline right there. Michael Jordan being the owner of that team, and he goes to victory lane in the biggest race of the year. Really huge storyline with that. And Tyler Reddick winning the biggest race of his career right there, too. I mean, he now has 9 career wins, and this is an interesting stat that all 9 of Reddick's Cup wins so far have each come on a different track. He's never won on a single track in Cup more than once so far, Mark.
Yeah, it's a fascinating statistic. I thought it was interesting how much more national media NASCAR got. The second Michael Jordan's team wins the race. It's like yeah, it's Michael Jordan's team, but it's Denny. Like, to NASCAR drivers, it's not news. It's news in the sense that they won the Daytona 500, but I think it's funny how the mainstream media and the common sports fan all of a sudden, oh, Michael Jordan is involved in racing for the first time.
He's been involved with the sport for a couple of years now, and I know some people are also like, all right, now Michael Jordan has a Daytona 500 ring. That, I guess he's still ahead of LeBron, even though the thing is that most people don't seem to know that LeBron James actually has ownership in NASCAR as well. He's actually he's a part owner for RFK Racing, because the investment group that's invested into RFK, LeBron James is one of the members with that.
I didn't know that. RFK, okay.
Yeah.
All right, Brad.
But even so, since LeBron joined that group, they still have not won a Daytona 500 yet. So still doesn't change the point that Jordan got it first.
I mean, it's kind of how it's always gone, right?
Yeah. Because we know the internet and social media love to debate about Jordan versus LeBron, Mark. They always do.
But we're not here to do that. We're here to give out some picks.
Yeah. And speaking of picks, let's quickly go review some of the ones we made last week. Even though, let's put it this way, there were a lot of duds that we ended up calling last week. There were also a couple of big hits that ended up happening right there, too. Even in the Discord chat, one of my long shot bets was Tyler Reddick on race day when he was at 40-1 odds in order to win. So that right there was already pretty impressive. But even on this very show last week, we all talked about Chris Buescher and Bubba Wallace, and they both ended up inside the top 10. Rich and I, we both called the top 10 bet on Discord and on the show for Bubba in order to get a top 10. And then I also mentioned about a top 10 for Chris Buescher on this very show as a bet last week to take. That ended up hitting right there, too. I ended up also naming some good days for some Hendrick drivers right there. Chase Elliott, I mentioned him last week on this very show. He ended up finishing in the 4th position right there, and it was very close in order to winning the Daytona 500 there until he was left as a sitting duck overall. And then William Byron, although he didn't get the three-peat, he did end up having a really strong DFS performance, going from 39th all the way to the 12th position right there. He certainly helped some people win their DFS contest the past week.
Yeah, did he so they must have fixed up his car. They didn't run out of replacement, right?
No, they fixed up his car after he got damage earlier on. It's like I was saying in the Discord chat, as long as your car is not fully toast, you can repair it and still come out here with a decent result.
It was interesting to listen to the broadcast too. They were saying, I forget what driver they were talking about, but someone who did use a replacement car, they were like, you know what, the replacement car might actually run on the track better than the original, just given like whatever parts it had or chassis or whatever it might have been. But that was interesting because it's oftentimes you think of if they have to roll out a replacement car, it's an automatic discount on the play, but in that scenario, I forget who it was. I'll have to pull it up.
Man, yeah, the
I think it was
broadcast
Cindric, maybe, but no, it wasn't Cindric.
broadcast certainly said many things, that's for sure. But
Yeah,
I will give credit where credit is due. I do think that the Fox broadcast of the Daytona 500 is actually better than the average Fox broadcast of the past couple of years. That's for sure. They definitely did a little bit better on the commercial management. I liked the broadcast energy in the booth was a little bit better during the Daytona 500 as well. And I like that Harvick and Boyer kept their talking down and just let Mike Joy call the end of the race right there too, because that was a really good Mike Joy call. Considering Mike Joy's made some really great calls in the booth before, yeah, that one was pretty good, I'd say, Mark.
I thought so too. A lot of fans on X I saw were encouraging it as well. It was nice to see the American flex. So always enjoyed that with the flyover. I mean, just the whole production. Honestly, was very smooth. So I would agree. And a lot of, like you said, I don't think they had like a single commercial break with green flag racing or something like that. I thought I saw that statistic as well, where every single commercial break when we had green flag racing, they did side by side.
Yeah, that's how it should be for every race, I'd argue.
Yep.
So overall, before we get into Atlanta and connect it right there, let's actually quickly go over this news story right here. This was just announced very recently. Carson Quapple. We talked about him quite a lot last year since he ended up making it to the championship 4 in the knockout style playoffs. I mean, that's not no more. But one of the big storylines with Carson Quapple was how his schedule was going to turn out for the 2026 season. Well, now we know. He's going to be running a majority of the races in the number 1 car for Junior Motorsports, but 4 of those races are going to be with DGM Racing this year, Mark. So the amount of races there is 4 races. And basically, he's going to be driving that number 91 car in the O'Reilly series, first at Coda, then at Watkins Glen, then at Charlotte, and then at Sonoma. So 3 of that out of those 4 are road course events there for Carson Quapple. So 24 races. Now he'll be in the 1 car. 5 races will be in the 9 car for Junior Motorsports. And then these last 4 races with DGM now outlines his whole schedule for the year, because that was a big unknown heading into this year about how the rest of Quapple's races are going to be allocated. Mark, what are your first thoughts on this?
Well, I think he's gonna have to really prove himself with JRM this year. It feels like kind of a make or break type of moment for him, knowing that he could it almost feels like if he has a letdown type of year, he's going to start getting phased out, and DJM might be his primary team in the future. So who knows? But I mean, it's cool, man. It's interesting also to see, like you said, with the road courses, 3 of the 4. So maybe it's just something where with road courses, he's working with a different crew chief and getting a different type of opportunity.
Yeah, that's pretty important to note, because it's also very different levels of equipment right there too. Going from Junior Motorsports, which is top of the pack at the O'Reilly level, towards DGM, which is more like a mid-pack team. That's going to be a big difference maker, I'd say, as far as some of these races. But in mind, I think that Charlotte race in particular is the one I have circled where it's going to be the biggest difference overall, Mark.
Yeah. Well, and even, because it's different equipment and stuff, it might drive different. And then you go right into a road course, especially that very first race where you're going into a road course under different equipment. That could be a little bit of a nightmare. So, we have to remember that for him for some of these road courses this season.
Yeah, and with Coda being the first, that's coming up very quick next week.
Yep.
So do keep that in mind right there. And the reason why he's not in the one for the whole season is because he's splitting that ride with Connor Zilic this year. So that right there is what we got to keep in mind too.
Yeah, they're prioritizing Zilic, which makes sense. Just a little bit.
Just a teeny tiny bit, you'd say.
Like him this week in Cup.
Yeah, Zilic is going to be a pretty interesting name. But speaking of Cup, how about we go forth and talk about Atlanta finally and get right on into it? So, what should we expect from this track? What type of racing should we see? I think it should be ultimately very similar to last week, but with a few little differences, Mark. How about you tell us about some of those differences and how that could factor into DFS and betting?
Yeah, so it's a smaller track. So we have to understand that first. It's 260 laps. So because of the lap increase, we do have to consider drivers who could record not only fastest laps, but also laps led in this race. One thing just to point out, I will say one maybe thing to mind from my experience from last week is I played a lot more FanDuel last week just because the opportunity was there with the Daytona 500. And the one big takeaway that I had was that laps led, obviously it's less significant on FanDuel than it is on DraftKings. DraftKings, you can accumulate points a lot quicker with laps led just because I think it's weighted a little bit more. But and then also I don't think you have fastest laps that get recorded on FanDuel. So some of those bonus points, you know what? No, that I think that's wrong. I think we do have fastest laps on FanDuel.
I think what FanDuel does make a bigger point of is laps completed, though.
Laps completed, yes.
Yeah, that's the big difference right there. Because if you got drivers that end up crashing out early and they just don't end up coming back to the track and making laps, that's going to completely tank a lineup right there.
Yeah, and so you wonder if that's it. You prioritize one website over the other when you consider different styles of racing. And so I was thinking about that a lot over the last couple of days going into Atlanta, and the laps led component and the similar style of racing to Daytona makes me want to maybe do more mass entry on FanDuel again for this week. So TBD on that. And it's something I'm experimenting and playing around with and trying to consider what direction I want to go with that, how I should interpret that. But that's one thing to consider. So 260 laps, it's a shorter track. I would say the first portion of the track is similar to Daytona. And then it's almost like the second half is where it deviates a lot because you have much higher banking on that second portion when you come around the third turn there, or the end around turn, and after the backstretch, and then it gets really narrow. So it causes a lot of kind of chaos when you come down that final stretch of the track. So we've seen it recently. We saw Blaney and Suarez, and I forget who the third one was, in that one of the most insane finishes in NASCAR I've ever watched.
That was Kyle Busch. What was that? I think 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 or 3 years ago at this point, Kyle, ago? And they were, it was like the straight out of the movie Cars, where it's like all three cars were right on the finish line in that last moment. So man, that was a great race. And so honestly, I'm looking forward to it. I think this is probably a better racing experience than Daytona, if we have to be honest here. So It's going to be interesting. There's a lot of similarities to Daytona. It's not a completely different type of style of racing, but some slight differences here and there that we have to consider and understand. I don't know. I think handling is going to be a little bit more of a challenge when they come around that back portion of the track.
Oh,
And
definitely.
managing tires will be probably a little bit more something we have to consider too.
Oh, definitely. And the thing is, too, is with this being a smaller track, there isn't as much room on the track for drivers to make moves. So every single move that a driver makes can just be that much more impactful if it ends up becoming a mistake.
Exactly, you really have to be decisive when you make that move, especially when if you try to pass on the inside. You have a very narrow window on a lot of spots on the track.
Yeah, which also sometimes this makes drivers kind of less compelled in order to make passes at times, especially in the earlier portions of the race. And you know what that also means? We could see more potential dominators or drivers that lead laps for longer periods of time compared to Daytona.
For what it's worth, Denny Hamlin was quoted on Monday saying, "You advance on this type of track in the pits." And I think that's 100%. We have to consider teams who are going to have clean pit stops and no mistakes on pit lane because there's 3 stages, I think,
Yeah, three
um,
stages.
and then a final 60 laps to close out the race. So, there's going to be a lot of different drivers on different strategies. So, one thing to also consider when building DFS lineups is I'm much more inclined to stack teams. So, playing teams together, like a team Penske lineup, a Henderson Motorsports lineup. So, I think we have to consider that because they're probably going to be correlated or a higher chance that they align on the same type of strategies.
Yeah, that usually is the case on these kinds of tracks as well. And we see it at Daytona with the different manufacturers trying to pit together. That's a
Oh
good example
yeah,
right there.
that 100%. That was fascinating to kind of watch how some of the different manufacturers all came in at the same time, and you have drivers from multiple teams almost trying to work together to make sure they're all getting clean stops coming back out.
Although what's interesting is what we saw at Daytona last week was that there were even some drivers and teams that kind of didn't exactly get quite coordinated with the rest of their teammates too, and that made for some interesting storylines right there, Mark.
Yeah, because they couldn't get close together, and so couldn't conduct pushes, and so they lost a lot of speed and really a lot of miscommunication to a certain degree. But honestly, it was like it almost kind of canceled everyone out because a lot of the different groups were kind of not on the same page.
Yeah, and then you want to talk about the miscommunication issues just with people not hearing each other. What about the types of issues, like, for example, what Carson Hocevar was dealing with on the final 3 laps of Daytona right there in the Cup race? I don't know if you heard about it, Mark, but he was saying that for the final 3 laps, his radio was completely having issues where he couldn't even talk to his spotter or his crew chief completely.
Wow. No, I didn't see that at all. That's crazy though.
Imagine
Hurricane
that.
Hocevar.
Imagine having to drive all the way to the lead and maintain it without your spotter telling you where the runs are coming from, Mark.
I don't know, but it obviously didn't work out to his advantage in the end there. It caught him at some point.
Yeah, right as the white flag dropped.
It's very unfortunate. What he
Because he
finished 21st,
he was looking
something like
really
that.
good up until that point too.
Yeah, but he'll be back this week, I think. I think overall, like you said, he looked good. So, that's the type of driver I like to attack in a tournament the following week when a lot of people got burned by him on the last lap there.
There's a couple of drivers that certainly fall into that category this week, Mark, and certainly we can talk about that as we dive deeper into the drivers themselves. One other point that I'm just going to mention that, like last week at Daytona, betting wise, I'm not going to be chasing too many of the particular categories like group winner or top fives. Mainly, I'm just going to be sticking towards a lot of winner-based bets because of the deeper than average odds on these kinds of tracks, or top tens where I know I have a bit of a safety blanket in order for that bet to hit. and still have something with plus odds right there, Mark, and spreading the love between a lot of different drivers, like keeping unit counts low and basically making sure that I nail as many drivers as possible in order to have them finish within that range and make that back up that way.
Yeah, I'm gonna play probably mass entry again. I feel like super speedways, that's the way to go. So you can kind of just enjoy the race. You're not on your toes the entire time. A nervous wreck that one of your drivers in your lineups are gonna crash because it really is. You could just be in the wrong place at the wrong time on a race like this. So plenty of diverse lineups. Want to make sure I diversify myself on that front, and then I think I'm going to try to get now that we're starting the season, get on the train with posting some of my bets and the official channel here. So I'm going to try and join you and Rich starting this week.
Oh, that's exciting. I love seeing when you bet because you always have some interesting ones posted up right there. Sometimes I don't even think of that, and now I'm like, man, I should have bet it on that and thought of it sooner.
Yeah, I think I've been doing it with you guys enough now where I'm feeling pretty good about it and getting a nice hit rate. So I think it's time to start making them official.
Love it. Love it. Fishing for victories right here.
Yes,
Love it.
sir.
Okay, let's get into the list of the notables and the part-timers for all three series this week right here, Mark. I'm going to start us off on the trucks because trucks has another interesting list this week right here. And it all begins with Heim Time himself, Corey Heim, driving the number 1 truck for Tricon Garage. So Corey Heim is back in the trucks this week. That's very exciting to see. Clayton Green is in the number 2 for Team Rome. Adam Andretti, brother to John Andretti and nephew of Mario Andretti, is driving the number 5 for Tricon Garage this week. Another new name to NASCAR right there. That's going to be real exciting to see. Kyle Busch. We finally got Busch back in a truck, driving the number 7 for Spire Motorsports. He's won this race on more than one occasion in the trucks before, and I believe he is the defending winner of this race in the trucks from last year. So going to be interesting to see him again. Then we have Josh Rome himself driving the number 22 truck for his own team, Team Rome. Then we have Ty Dillon driving the number 25 for Colleague Racing right there. So Ty Dillon back to the trucks, another Cup driver there. Then we have Tyler Reif in the number 42 for Nice Motorsports. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is rolling it back again in the number 45 for Nice Motorsports after making his truck debut last week at Daytona. Then we have John Hunter Nemechek again in the number 62 for Halmar Friesen Racing. He looked really strong at Daytona the past week there. Tyler Tomasi in the number 69 for NBM Motorsports. Carson Hocevar is once again doing the truck race this time at Atlanta. He's in the number 77 for Spire Motorsports. Then we have Justin S. Carroll in the number 90 for Terry Carroll Motorsports, and Caleb Koster rounding out the part-timer list in the number 93 for Koster Motorsports. 36 entries for 36 spots in the truck race, meaning all those drivers I mentioned, they're going to be racing this week, Mark.
Yeah, so what's interesting to me about the trucks is I can't remember the trucks having this many Cup drivers come down for a single race. Like I feel like last season it was always maybe one or two, but this is quite the lineup here for trucks. And then if you look at the O'Reilly Auto Parts series, it is almost exclusively O'Reilly Auto Parts drivers, with the exception of I think Chastain. So kind of a fascinating development with all of these Cup drivers for the second week in a row coming down to the trucks level.
Yeah, it has been said by some of the drivers and teams that the Truck Series trucks share a little bit more of the characteristics that are a little closer to the current Cup Series car than the O'Reilly cars do overall as it is. So a lot of these Cup drivers, and also we have to remember that the amount of races that Cup drivers can enter this year through the regulations has been increased in both of the lower series. So they are certainly taking advantage of that, giving themselves more opportunities to go racing in trucks or O'Reilly this year. So yeah, it's put on full display once again. Quite a few names right there for trucks. How about you talk to us about the O'Reilly list there, Mark? What's going on there?
Yeah, plenty of notables and part timers here as well. So Garrett Smithley in the number 0 with SS Greenlight Racing. We've got Luke Fenhouse coming back for a second week in a row in the number 5 with Hettinger Racing. Don't be surprised if we see a strong rebound for Luke Fenhouse this week, in my opinion. Josh Balicki in the number 07 in SS Greenlight Racing. Gio Ruggiero, so number 19 with JGR. Runner up last week, I believe. So Gio Ruggiero could easily be another strong DFS play for this week as well. Cody Ware. That's interesting to see him get double time, I believe, because he'll be in the Cup race as well. And then he's going to be in the number 30 with Barrett Cope Racing. Ross Chastain in the number 32 with Jordan Anderson Racing. We were really high on our Jordan Anderson Racing drivers last week. So to see Chastain with them, that's an interesting spot. Certainly going to have to consider him. Joey Gase in the number 35 with Joey Gase Motorsports. Nick Lights in the number 42 with Young's Motorsports. Chad Fincham, number 55 with Joey Gase Motorsports as well. And then to round it out, we've got Dawson Cram in the number 74 with Mike Harmon Racing. I don't think we see him too often. I feel like Dawson Cram, I feel like we see him more often in the road courses, but I could be wrong on that. Raja Karuth in number 88 with JRM, and love seeing Raja. Last week, I believe he had a strong outing, I want to say. So that was an exciting driver to see last week. And so I think this is going to be a fun season to watch Karuth. And then to round it out, Mason Maggio, number 91 with DGM Racing. And just to point out, 39 entries for the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series and only 38 spots. So we're going to have one driver on an open team going home this week.
Yeah, which if I'm willing to bet, if we're going based on speed, I think it's either going to be one of the Joey Gase cars or the Mike Harmon car right there with Dawson Cram as mentioned.
Yep.
That's my guess.
Probably.
Yeah, so that rounds out the O'Reilly Auto Parts part-timer list. In Cup, we only got two. Only two to keep in mind right there, and that's J.J. Yaley in the number 44 for NY Racing, and then B.J. McLeod in the number 78 for Live Fast Motorsports. Yaley didn't get the chance to race in a Cup Series race last week. Now he's going to do so now, and McLeod, as for him, I think that's a name that people playing DFS shouldn't entirely discount this week. I'm just telling you right now.
Yeah, I mean, I like a lot of the drivers in the top end, and quite honestly, there's plenty of value plays out there for this week, and guys that Yelly, Ware, McLeod, all those guys can easily get us some really nice place differential on a track like this.
And just for those that haven't been regular players on tracks outside of super speedways, that's not something you're going to be hearing us say outside of these particular kinds of tracks. Just to throw it out there.
Nope. Very, very few and often. So you want to take advantage of those plays while you can, because again, one of my big philosophies that I always harp on is I like to eat the chalk in NASCAR at the top end and then try to get different at the bottom. And I think a lot of those types of names are going to drive some single digit ownership type of plays.
Yeah, so that's how it is going to be today right there for that. We have Tampa Heart Bonds 18 shouting us out on YouTube. We're doing good today, Tampa Tarpons. We're also live on fantasyguru.com as it is as well. So it should be, the stream is going up right there as well. So if you're over at fantasyguru.com watching this, you like mentioned at the top of the show, since we're going to be getting into the drivers, you can leave comments in order to interact with us live. So go forth. You can hit us on screen. Just hit the video player if you're watching on computer or phone. The little chat bubble icon should be popping up in the upper right-hand corner. You hit that. That opens up the chat, and then you could ask us about drivers or any other questions that you may have for this week, or just if you want to say something funny or fun, you have that option too. So
Gotta say, We saw some really nice wins in the Discord too. Some nice screenshots, I think, coming out of the racing last weekend. So just great work to the subs too for taking in all the information and actually applying it.
Yeah, credit where credit is due. I definitely look like I'm not supposed to be in NASCAR.
It's like a golf clap, yeah. It's like the opposite of a redneck. Hey, how about Cletus McFarlane?
Yeah, Cletus. He ran for 6 laps in the truck race and then took himself out.
I love the clips of him doing the RV racing.
That's pretty fun there too, Mark. You were definitely right about that.
That's like a bucket list thing. Like everyone needs to participate in an RV race before it's all over.
I think it'd be cool to be a part of one. Maybe you and I could host one day and just ride some RVs.
Yeah, then you have to justify buying a junker RV and making a bunch of modifications to it.
Hey, you fix up an RV, that's good justification on its own, because then you could use that even for a road trip if you wanted to.
We're going to fix up the RV and catch some squirrels while we're at it.
There you go. There you go. Road tripping out, racing RVs.
Get my squirrel snares ready.
Oof, man. So, again, we are a part of fantasyguru.com. You can go forth, and as a reminder, you can get the MLB content over there right now. The guides are up. We also have the MVP, Platinum, VIP, and all-in packages. Whatever package you want to get in order to cover as many sports on fantasyguru.com as you want, you can go forth and get it right there. MVP is still on discount, I believe. Only $100 gets you covered for the entire year. So go forth and get those packages, and also hit up support at fantasyguru.com for the best possible deal you can get. You be nice to them, they will hook you up right on up. And we're going to hook up all the listeners and viewers of our little Race Guru Thunder Hour pod by discussing picks, and more picks. Does that sound great to you, Mark? I know that sounds good to me.
Yeah, we got plenty of picks, plenty of DFS plays. Obviously the disclaimer, especially with the super speedway, is that it's very qualifying dependent. So I think some of these pre-play picks, probably the best opportunity or the best way you can take advantage of it is to get some early bets in. Because, once qualifying happens, the value of those bets could go up or down. But the guys who have historical good averages on a track like this, the guys who looked good last week, those are probably the plays that we want to place the bets on now with, because the odds will get probably worse if they qualify and practice well. So just keep that in mind. And then I would just say in general, also our first instinct plays, what we noticed last year was that sometimes you don't want to kind of lean in too much on the qualifying positions, because that's where all the chalk goes. And some of those initial gut plays that we come up with on Wednesday nights, those guys end up prevailing, even though they don't have like the 35th position on the track. So just keep that in mind as well, and try to approach your lineups with a blend of what you collected tonight and then what else develops as we get closer towards the start of the races.
Yeah, it's just like when you dive down, as William G says here, like a dolphin into the water. You get your first glimpse, and then when you get a little bit more, you hop on out and make your picks. So there you go.
I was wondering where you're going with that.
See, I've had enough practice with segues that sometimes they land, Mark.
Sometimes. 50% of the time, or right 100% of the time. Is that the quote?
Unless you're referring towards the Office quote with Michael Scott right there. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, Wayne Gretzky.
Yes, something like that. It's like Office or Anchorman or something. Anyways, we've got picks in the top tier.
Yeah, top price picks to watch. And remember, if you guys want us to cover a driver that we didn't talk much about, leave it in the comments right now. We'll be pulling them up and giving some quick hitting analysis on the fly right here. But as for our top price picks to watch, how about we start off over here and talking about the fact that our top price list is 2 out of the 3 the same here, Mark. Let's talk about those two drivers first, because we both have Chase Elliott and Kyle Busch right here.
Yeah, so I think the thought process, I'm curious if you kind of got here in the same type of mindset, but both looked good last week and both kind of just stuck in some bad spots, wrong place at the wrong time, just kind of got screwed over. But I feel like the speed was there. They both looked good. They were both in it. Kyle Busch, particularly with that $8,800 price point, Chase Elliott's priced up with some of the best, but both of them, quite frankly, I think they also have great historical data on a track like this. So, quite honestly, plenty of place differential between both of them, and going to give you a very high floor. Will probably command some chalk. I would imagine Elliott will be at least 25% owned. I would imagine Kyle Busch will be a little bit less than that, about 20%. And then if they start in like the 20 or 25th position for each of them, then we're probably going to see them closer to 40%. So we'll command some chalk, but I think those are some pretty safe plays here.
Yeah, I definitely really like Kyle Busch a lot. He's shown a lot of speed on this particular track in the past. I think out of all the drafting tracks in recent years since he's gone to RCR, based on finish history, this has been his best one of the 3. So this is the one where I'm willing to really bet on Kyle Busch in order to be competitive. And he showed a lot of speed during Daytona as it is, and he probably could have competed for a top 10, but didn't want to risk his car dropping down to 15th, where it was safer in order to just ride around for points, because we do know that the chase format is the playoff format this year, and it's more about consistency and points over the season rather than going for wins as it is. So that may have been just a move to save on points with that. But I like how Kyle Busch is on this very track, and he has the best average finish of all drivers since 2023 of 8.8, which is very impressive. Only 2 drivers in the field have an average finishing position of lower than 10.0 in this field, and Kyle Busch is one of the 2. As for Elliott, well, remember earlier in the show, Mark, when I said that this race was a home track for Austin Hill? Take that same logic and apply it to Chase Elliott as well, because he's right from the Georgia area as well, and home track for him as well. He's going to be motivated to perform better. And on top of that, Elliott has won before at this track in the super speedway rules package as it is. And he's also one of only 2 drivers in the field that basically every time that they've participated in a race since 2023, they've at least finished top 20 every time. And he only shares that characteristic with one other driver there that's ran multiple races. And I'll also throw this as a hint too. That other driver that has done that is also the other driver whose average finish is below 10.0. That's not named Kyle Busch. And he's a driver that is going to appear on my list later there as yet another hint. So for those of you trying to guess who that may be, I'll leave you to it until we get to that. But I like both of these drivers to start.
And I'll add with Chase Elliott too. We've seen him actually win here twice since 2022. In the race back in 2022, he started on the pole and led 96 laps, got both, or I think the first 2 stages of that race. So you don't always see that. You don't always see a driver dominate or get that many laps led in a singular race here at Atlanta. So it is that probably gives him even a little bit more of a premium. The concern I have is, can the other Chevys, especially or particularly on his team, like a guy like Kyle Larson, keep up with him? Because Larson, this is not a good track for him.
No, it is not. In fact, actually, if you wanted to talk strictly about the Hendrick Motorsports drivers, you got Chase Elliott there being the best driver at this track with a little bit of a margin over the next best guy on the team at being Alex Bowman, if we're going by an average finish right there. And it's definitely a noticeable gap between him and the rest of the teammates. Even William Byron, even though he's also been a former winner at this track, he's been a bit boomer bust as well, too.
Yeah, so and again, this is kind of a place that I want to stack drivers on. So I'm almost talking myself out of Chase Elliott to a certain degree. I think if he goes like 40% owned or more, I'm probably out on him if we see ownership stay in check and maybe he doesn't get like a very favorable qualifying position or something. I might still be on him. But I like Team Penske a lot. Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney. So I had Joey Logano as my third top tier option. And he's won here twice, since February of 2023. He has the most laps led amongst any driver over that time frame. And Ryan Blaney, we've seen him. He's got 3 top 5s. So that's the most. He's tied with Suarez and Bell for several top 5s in this next gen car. And quite frankly, he was a hair away from winning that race a few years ago that we talked about earlier on the show between him, Suarez, and Busch. So Ryan Blaney, why not? And then Joey Logano, he's got plenty of data to show that he can return as a great DFS play for this week.
Okay, I'm just going to say this. We always have the Joey Logano conversation on the show whenever he comes up on a drafting track right here. But I will say that Logano did kind of prove me wrong a little bit last week right there because he actually did manage to finish the race finally in a good position at Daytona 500, finishing in third. And, even though he still ended up crashing his car in the process, like many other times since, he at least made it to the end, and that counts for a lot because the big problem with Logano before was him just finishing the races in a good position.
Yeah.
It's not been a question of whether he has the speed or the skill. It's just him getting to the end right there.
I like how the Fords looked last week too, and that's kind of where my head is at. Is like on a track like that's kind of similar. I would not be surprised to see the Fords prevail once again this week. So,
yeah, and I'm just gonna say with Logano, I do think if there was any track in order to use him best, which I think plays to his strengths most, it is definitely this one. So I am not against Logano this week. I know the past couple of times or however long it's been, I've been kind of anti-Logano on these kinds of tracks, but I think I'm willing to take a chance on him this week, especially in a tournament lineup, because here's the thing. We know those Penske fours are fast, and since qualifying is going to be based on speed and not based on the results of a qualifying race, you know they're going to be qualifying right towards the front right there. So you know Logano and probably Blaney as well are going to be tournament plays more than likely, Mark.
I love that, and quite honestly, I think Team Penske is the stack to play for this week because you have a $10,200 driver and a $10,000 driver. You're paying up for the most expensive options on the entire slate. I don't think a lot of other DFS players are going to attempt to do that. I think they're going to look for savings in like a Kyle Busch or someone, down below in the low nines. So you pay up and then you get really different at the bottom with a guy like McLeod or Yelly or Ware or something like that. And all of a sudden you're in business, man. You got probably multiple single digit ownership type of drivers in your lineup, all the leverage in the world.
Yeah, truly. That is for sure. Having that leverage is going to be big in these kinds of races, for sure. William G in the chat, he's saying, do we need to bring Matt Kenseth out of retirement for this weekend? Well, that could be fun, but I don't think Kenseth really would want to race in this style of racing. Even though he's been successful in the past, the former two-time Daytona 500 winner right there, I think really he's not going to be as into it because his role is mostly just coaching Toyota drivers these days. So that's the thought process with that. But I am going to say that my last top price pick is going to be another driver whose last name starts with a K, Brad Keselowski. So talking about the Fords right there too, the RFK Racing Fords, I think are also going to be very strong this weekend, Mark. And I was trying to consider whether I wanted Blaney, Logano, or Keselowski in my lineup, but I think the all-around pick for me is going to be Keselowski because of the salary difference right there being way friendlier right there compared to the other two. And Keselowski's also got a pretty strong finishing record at the new version of Atlanta too. He's never won there since they've gone to the super speedway version of Atlanta, but he certainly had a lot of capable results. And let's not forget, he led over 40 plus laps in his last Atlanta appearance there, Mark.
Yeah. And again, I think maybe I'm putting too much emphasis on the teams, but what can Busher and Priest provide a little bit of a supporting role, particularly Priest, because, I mean, I feel like he came out strong to start the year. He obviously had a fantastic season last year. But this isn't as much of a track that I would expect Priest to. This is probably one of the few spots this year where we're not banging the doors down to suggest Ryan Priest. And if I'm also going to avoid a top 10 bet with Chris Buescher, this is probably one of the few tracks that I'm going to do that on. So normally we are going with Mr. Top 10 almost every single week, but I'm not pulling the trigger on that this week. So, my concern is maybe, I guess, some of the guys around him.
Yeah, I kind of am with you in the same boat right there. I don't think Priest is going to be a bad play because on this particular track in the past, he's never been the strongest qualifier. So I do think we might have some potential playability right there for Priest at least. And Buescher could be the same way too, but Buescher's results have been a little bit more mixed on the track. He's had his fair share of top 10 finishes, but he's also had his fair share of finishes outside the top 20 before in the new Atlanta as well. So I do think that Brad is the best driver of the three from RFK. If you had told me to pick one in order to use in your lineup this week, he just has the experience and overall, he's just been more consistent than the other two.
I think, like, in a perfect world, the ideal setup is this week. Again, I'm on Team Penske. I would love Logano to win the pole, get a bunch of laps led at the beginning of the race. Even if he drops a few spots back and records a top 5, he would pay off. And then you get Blaney maybe he starts 23rd, and then he works his way into the top 5. That would be the ideal type of setup that we're looking for two 10K drivers to pay off.
If you look back since 2023, the amount of laps led between drivers, all three Team Penske drivers are within the top 4 most laps led, with Logano and Austin Cindric in particular being 1-2. So,
and don't forget about him.
Brad K is number 3 on that list.
There you go.
Right behind them, and then we have Blaney right there at number 4. So.
And you don't have to do full team stacks. If you want to throw in a one-off Elliott or a one-off Brad Keselowski, I don't think, just because the overall team doesn't have good numbers doesn't mean you should completely rule those guys out.
Yeah. And if you wanted to get behind the idea of stacking, you don't even have to have your stacks be team specific. They could be manufacturer specific as well too, because we mentioned about those 4 drivers that led the most laps there since 2023. All 4 of those guys are Ford drivers. You could just do a Ford stack right there and have that potentially prevail as well.
And again, remember, this is something, with the number of stages and stuff that we really have to consider, trying to get linear correlation, drivers that correlate well together. And that's going to be oftentimes drivers with the same manufacturers, because they're going to have technical alliances. They're going to be on the same teams. So they're going to follow the same strategies and pit at the same times. And often we see those strategies, they work out for certain groups and don't work out for others. And if you have a lineup with a mix of guys and a bunch of different strategies, you're just going to be sitting there pissed off the whole time.
Oh, yeah, you certainly got that right. That's for sure.
From
But
my experience.
But let's talk about some drivers that may not make you that much angry, but they're still going to be very much helpful for your DFS lineups, and that's because they're mid-tier drivers to watch. So overall, with the mid-tier drivers to watch this week, it's looking like we're going to be talking about the same drivers all over again here, Mark, because I'm looking that our list match up pretty much almost completely right there. Actually, they do match up completely, other than me adding one extra driver.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Hocevar, we talked about him earlier, but he's got a lot of speed. He's looking good. I mean, if he didn't have that issue at the end of the race last week, we could very well be talking about a Daytona 500 winner. $7,900 for a car like that, more than willing to go after. Obviously, we've got some good historical data on Hocevar to back it up here. So he's averaging a starting position of like 30th or 31st place over the course of 4 races, and averaging a finishing position of just about 12th place. He's finished as high as runner up. He's got 2 top 10s. He's been in the top 20 for all 4 races that he's done here. So hard to not go with him. But to add to that, I mean, Ricky Stenhouse. You talked about Kyle Busch being the driver with the best average finish here of 8.8 over the last 6 races. Well, guess what? Ricky Stenhouse is right after him at 9.7. So he is averaging a finish of the top 10, and he is starting typically in the 30th position. So this is the type of track that Stenhouse can get leverage on. We talk about Recchi, but he doesn't have a single DNF here over the last 6 races in this next gen car. So Ricky Stenhouse, Carson Hocevar, those are going to be some chalky type of plays. And Daniel Suarez is priced up at 7,200, but reasonably so. We've seen this is when I think Atlanta racing, I do think Daniel Suarez because of that race a few years ago, and we see him often have very good performances here. So I love the fact that he's priced up. It's probably going to keep his ownership in check, and he might actually be my favorite of all 3 of these guys that we just named, knowing the other 2 are going to be very high, probably chalky and also riskier plays. These are aggressive drivers that we're discussing here.
So yeah, the other driver I was hinting at earlier there that I was teasing before was Stenhouse. So, and you just read the stats right there to prove exactly why. Nothing much more to add right there. Hocevar, he almost won this race in a woulda, coulda, shoulda sort of moment where if they didn't throw the caution at a certain point, he would have been leaving with his first career cup win 1 year ago at this very track. So that's how close Hocevar was to winning. He's going to be good here again. He was in position to win the Daytona 500 leading on when the white flag dropped. He's been showing a lot of speed, so I do like that right there. I actually absolutely really like the Daniel Suarez call right here, Mark. And I like it even more just because of, believe it or not, those past couple of finishes was when he was with Trackhouse. I argue because he's now a part of Spire Motorsports and their cars are tuned a little bit better for the drafting tracks. I think that only makes me like Suarez even more than before. And his first super speedway race last week, he ended up finishing in the 15th position right there. So definitely better than some of his other results in the past, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and you want to talk about again another type of team stack. So you take Kyle Busch and Daniel Suarez, and that's probably a more contrarian type of combo, and then you roll that out with like a Team Penske or something along those lines, and that's quite an interesting build. Not to mention track time, like we always talk about. I mean, Carson Hocevar, Ricky Stenhouse, they're both driving those trucks on the Friday night race. Yeah. So
actually, the trucks are Saturday afternoon. They're doing
they're
double
both
header.
on Saturday. Okay. I'm mixing that up because I'm going to the trucks the following week is here in St. Pete on Saturday night, and I will be personally at that race. So I'm not going to be on the pod or on the live stream for next week to talk about it, but I'm excited, man. So we got trucks 2 Saturdays in a row.
Yeah, that's going to be fun to watch right there. William G mentioning in the chat that he might throw SPG into one of the lineups after how he did Daytona. SPG, I think, is an interesting case for a potential value play. I think he's going to be the starting position dependent for me, but I'm not totally against it either because SPG has just been improving in general on the ovals as it is, Mark.
Yeah, he's like an interesting driver because I feel like he is a little bit more mainstay now than people realize, and he still gets priced down pretty far. $5,700. So for a guy that is winning maybe 3 races a year, not too shabby.
Not too shabby
Even though those are
indeed.
road courses, to your point, he has improved on the ovals drastically.
Yeah, I think by the time we get towards the latter half of the season, we might start to see him compete more for top 15s and top 10s on a more regular basis if he keeps progressing the way he is. That would be
Yeah, I like
big.
that call. I like that call. That's a single digit owner. That's a less than 5% play likely.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I also bring up SBG because the other driver from this group that I didn't mention was more of a FanDuel specific pick, but that was Ross Chastain. Speaking of drivers that are also doing double duty this week because he's driving in the O'Reilly race there for Jordan Anderson. This is a pretty solid track for Ross Chastain as well. He has a lot of finishes that are within that whole top 15 range. Dating back to 2022, he's only had 2 finishes worse than 13th. Rest 2 finishes are 13th, 2 finishes that are out way worse than 13th, and then the rest of them top 10 finishes. So this is a pretty solid track for Chastain, and even on DraftKings, I like him there too. I just recommend Carson Hocevar over Chastain on DK in particular, but he's a good pivot there if you think Hocevar is going to have too much rostership over there.
And that's like, it's almost like if you think these guys are going to be chalky, feel free to, fade them in DFS and then place some top 10 bets on them, on the sports books, because you don't have to worry about chalk and sports book type of plays. So that's one way to maybe think about it too. If we see those guys get a little too invested in.
Yeah, for sure. But speaking of drivers to get invested in, let's talk about some potential sleepers and value drivers right here that we can maybe get invested in. So let's start off talking with the 2 drivers we have in common on both of our list, Eric Jones and the Dinger, AJ Allmendinger. So where do we start, Jones or the Dinger? Who do you like more between the 2?
I like Eric Jones mainly because Allmendinger will often. So I really like both for different reasons. The thing about Allmendinger is that this is a driver that's priced down so much, 5,700 or 5,600, but he doesn't jump out on the page to DFS players because he'll qualify in like the 17th position. So because we see him qualify around 17th, 19th, 20th, whatever it might be, he does a good job of just kind of hanging in the middle of the pack and then getting, close to a top 10 or just staying within the top 20. And if he maintains his position and, starts 17th and finishes 18th at $5,600, he's going to pay off. Now, Eric Jones has a little bit less risk because obviously if Allmendinger's team makes a mistake, it might be hard for him to ever get back up. But Jones is someone who's starting a lot further back and averaging, 12 place differential spots on like every single race. So he looked good, I thought, last week. This is the type of track that, he does a good job of taking care of the car. I would say he does a good job of taking care of the car and finishing races in general. And he's a pretty good driver when it comes to, taking care of his tires. So, especially with more laps, that becomes a little bit more of a factor here. So Personally, if I had to pick between both of them, I would go Eric Jones, but I like both for different reasons.
Yeah, I think both of them could be used in different settings too. Like Allmendinger might be a more potential tournament-friendly play, whereas Jones could be better for all-around or cash game options right there as well. So, or
Love
heck,
that.
even then, you could even find a way to use both of them and get a lot of cap flexibility in order to get like yourself maybe a Ryan Blaney or a Joey Logano or a Kyle Busch even. So that's a good way in order to utilize these drivers into your lineup right there.
Another
Now,
driver who looked good. I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was just going to say, since we're talking about legacy motorsports, I mean, John Hunter Nemechek, I felt like he looked good last week. He doesn't, again, the numbers aren't crazy, but the numbers are pretty good for him. So, we did this combo so many times last year and it worked out almost every single time. You just throw in Jones and John Hunter Nemechek in a lineup and they're both getting you plenty of place differential with especially JHN with plenty of upside. He won people tournaments, I feel like last week.
yeah, that is for sure. JHN in 3 of the 4 races since Atlanta's reconfiguration, he has scored positive place differential. Although for most of those races, it wasn't a lot of place differential, he still at least moved forward a little bit, which still counts for something and sometimes and can be a bit of a difference maker.
And he's won here in the O'Reilly Auto Parts or formerly the Xfinity Series as well. So we've seen him knock down this race entirely on some of the lower circuits. Who knows? He came out swinging last week. Maybe this is his week to knock down a cup win.
And like we've always said, we like drivers when they get track time. He's another one of those double duty drivers because he's in the truck race as well, as mentioned earlier.
But I apologize, I cut you off there. You had someone else that you were throwing out.
Yeah, I was going to throw out the other driver that was on my sleeper list right here, Michael McDowell. So McDowell, I think we know he has some experience when it comes towards drafting tracks in particular. He's also been very solid at Atlanta in the last couple of seasons as well there too. You look back since 2022, his worst finish is 24th, which is when you consider how many races that he's ran at the newer Atlanta, that's actually not too bad. And most of his results were in the top 20 and he's scored positive place differential more than a couple of times at this track in particular. And Spire Motorsports, again, we're bringing up Spire. They have a good feel for these kinds of tracks, and all their drivers ended up showing a lot of speed at Daytona the last week. So now I actually do have to say I ended up talking about all 3 Spire drivers as drivers I like this week. That's a stack right there that you can really consider there too. And I don't think people are going to be as privy to Spire because they haven't been winning races as much.
Yeah, you might get ownership on Kyle Busch, but McDowell and Suarez, like these are going to be
Kyle's with RCR.
Or I'm sorry. So it's Suarez, it's McDowell, and who are we missing?
Hocevar.
Hocevar. Okay. So Hocevar, you're going to probably get more ownership with, but you put those guys in a stack, and I think that's probably one of the more contrarian type of team stacks that you can roll out.
Oh, it's definitely going to be for sure. And all 3 of those drivers all looked very good at Daytona the last week. And really, they're all below 8K on DraftKings as well. So they're a very easy stack in order to fit in.
Yeah, I'd be curious. We might have to test this out, but maybe you could get both Penske drivers, those 3 Spire guys, and then like a low, 5K driver as well. Which, speaking of, I've got a few of them. I mean, JJ Yelly, 5K, Cody Ware at 5,200, BJ McLeod at 5,100. As long as these guys start in the back end of the pack, they're getting positive place differential on a lot of these races here. They're getting you 10, 11, 12, 10, 11 spots for a 5K driver going from like 39 to 28, that type of thing. I'll take that all day, especially because you're not going to see a lot of ownership on those types of guys.
You 100% agree with that, especially McLeod in particular. I think is going to be especially noteworthy in this respect because he also has the history to prove that he finishes ahead of where he starts most of the time on this particular track. I think Cody Ware has the best equipment of the three and has the most potential to move up. I mean, we've now seen him in a few races more recently where he's starting to approach the front, maybe even lead a lap or two, and that's bonus points right there for your DFS lineup as it is. Yaley's my least favorite of the three. I think he has the weakest and slowest equipment of the three. But I do think he can also help as well. He is the cheapest driver of the three in mind. But yeah, I think it is going to depend on the track circumstances as it is as well there, Mark. You are
Yep.
definitely right about that.
Yeah, we got to keep an eye out for qualifying because, a guy like Yelly might be the odd man out here as well. So we'll see what happens. I know we talked about Cram in the Cup race. No.
Cram's in
Yes.
O'Reilly.
Yeah. So okay. So Cup race, we won't have the odd man out. I'm mixing that up with O'Reilly.
Yeah. And by the way, while you were off explaining about that, I did do your little experiment right here. On DraftKings, if you fit all three of the Spire drivers and then you fit Logano and Blaney into your lineup, it still leaves you with 7,900 on DraftKings.
What?
So you can get from Bubba Wallace all the way on down.
Yeah, throw out Ricky Stenhouse. Look at that.
Yeah, Stenhouse.
And then you can leave a few bucks on the table too. That might be our fantasy guru lineup of the week.
Yeah, and it might just work out too. I mean, both of these teams are going to be strong this week. I'm feeling it.
I love it.
So, speaking of Fantasy Guru lineups, let's talk about some lineups with our core fours in particular for DFS. So, I actually got Kyle Busch here at 8,800 on DraftKings and 9,000 on FanDuel. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he's 7,500 on DraftKings, 5,800 on FanDuel. AJ Allmendinger at 5,600 on DraftKings and 3,500 on FanDuel. And then the last member of my core is different between the two sites. For DraftKings, give me Carson Hocevar at 7,900. And for FanDuel, give me Ross Chastain at 7,800 right there, too. The difference between the two, I like them almost similarly. Hocevar's cheaper on DraftKings, whereas Chastain is slightly cheaper than Hocevar on FanDuel. That is the difference.
Yeah, I mean, Chastain at 7,800 on FanDuel would be like getting Chastain at like 6,500 on DraftKings. That's a pretty darn low price point there.
Yeah, they're right next to each other on DraftKings by a $200 difference, and that's the same case with FanDuel because Hocevar is a flat 8,000 right there.
That's crazy, man. That is FanDuel's pricing. We talk about this a lot over the years, and it just always seems like you get some weird discounts for no reason over there on a weekly basis.
Yeah, Suarez over there is 6,200, for example.
Well, I love that core, and I've got some overlap. I got Kyle Busch and Ricky Stenhouse as well. It's hard not to look at those guys. I put in Eric Jones at $6,300 because you got to pay up for him too, and you're gonna have other people paying down. I think you combine him with like a 5K driver, and you can really get different here. So I like Eric Jones a lot, and but I'm a big fan of what we were talking about with Allmendinger as well. So. Allmendinger, who do you I'm curious what you think about this. I feel like Allmendinger will probably have the lower amount of ownership. But I don't know, man, because it's like, I think their ownership is probably going to be very similar despite being in different types of positions on this race.
And I also think that the amount that those two are going to end up scoring, I think, is also going to be very similar, too.
But don't be surprised if you see both at like 20%. I don't think they're going to be as different as you may think. We'll have to see about that. I think we have to be careful of falling into some ownership traps this week.
Yeah, I think the big difference between Eric Jones and AJ Allmendinger is going to come down to salary right there too, because Jones is 6,300, Allmendinger's 5,600 on DK.
So Logano, Busch, Stenhouse, and Jones for me, and then might as well go to our core four betting winners because we got to have a betting plan for this type of week and spread the love a little bit. We've talked about Busch plus 2,000. I think that's a pretty good deal considering how many drivers are at plus 1,000 with similar types of historical data. I threw in because I'm probably not going to play him in DFS, but Brad Keselowski at plus 2,000 as well. Ryan Blaney at plus 1,000 and Chase Elliott at plus 1,000 because if there's a Team Penske driver, I don't end up rostering as much as I should. It's probably going to be Blaney and then Chase Elliott at plus 1,000 because of how well I thought he looked last week.
Yeah, I think my betting core four is very much the same. I guess if we wanted to say it, we could say that I'm sure if you look at the one driver that you didn't include, you'd probably include him as your fifth right there.
Yep.
So,
and Logano. Yeah.
Joey Logano plus 1,000 right there. So let's just say that all five of those drivers are essentially our combined core five for this week here. Like if you wanted to bet on a driver to win that I think has a realistic chance of winning, those are the five that I'd probably put money on.
You get one of them average of plus 1,500. That's a pretty good payoff. But we got other bets too. I'm curious because we're bringing the McChickens back. We're making this a weekly thing since the middle of last season. I'm curious what and why your McChicken bet of the week is, Sean.
Oh, before I get there, I got some top 10 bets to name right here. So I got Kyle Busch for a top 10 at minus 105. I know it's a minus bet, but I don't think you're going to get better odds than that. And I think Kyle Busch is likely to get that done this week. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. for a top 10 at plus 135. Give me Daniel Suarez top 10 at plus 190 right there. I think that the odds of that in particular is a little bit off. And then you wanted to know about the McChicken. It's a driver we haven't even talked about at all today. Give me Zane Smith in order to be my long shot McChicken winner at 65-1 odds. So Zane Smith, he's in a front row motorsports car. Front row, they have a bit of a technical alliance with Team Penske. And that was on display last week at the Daytona 500 because before we saw Reddick and Riley Herbst move together in order to catch Chase Elliott, Zane Smith was in that spot where he could have actually really stolen this race out of everybody's eyes right there. And also throughout that race, he was passing the eye test for me as well because he fell back through the pack several times and kept repeatedly coming back to the front again and again and again without crashing the car. And I saw there was an online interview with Zane Smith that somebody did where he was talking about his performance, and he was saying that front row, they've elevated their drafting track program a little bit more this year, and he's excited for some of these races. Now, you got to like a driver that has some confidence in their speed on a track like this. So Zane Smith, he's going to be somebody that I don't think people are going to see coming, and because he's really deep and is in solid equipment, give me some Zane Smith as a long shot for 65-1 odds.
Yeah, I'll throw a McChicken bet on that too. I agree. It was impressive, and that's a nice little nugget, nice little McNugget that you added in there about Front Row Motorsports stepping up their drafting program this year. So I love that call out too. I've got a few bets. I've got Christopher Bell. We haven't talked about him much, but a Christopher Bell top 5 at plus 185. He's won here as of recent. He's got really good data. Obviously priced up a little bit for DFS given his typical average starting position versus finish, but he can easily pay off in DFS too and probably is going to go overlooked considering we haven't talked about him until the very end of this show. So I love Christopher Bell in a top 5 plus 185. I think those are really good odds, great value. Ryan Blaney in a top 10. This isn't a great payout, but minus 190 just to give us a little bit of a floor with our betting plan this week. And then I'm with you. The Kyle Busch at minus 105. That seems like a misprint for a top 10 placing here. Daniel Suarez is a great shot call at a top 10 for plus 190. It's actually surprising. I was hoping to get maybe in the plus twos somewhere for him. And then my McChicken is who I talked about earlier. Another driver that just I felt really impressed by last week. Again, someone that I would love to pair in DFS with Eric Jones, but John Hunter Nemechek at plus 7,500. Again, he's won at the O'Reilly Auto Parts level. He's got solid place differential in Cup so far here. And, a few solid breaks could go John Hunter Nemechek's way. Would not be surprised if somehow we saw John Hunter Nemechek standing in victory lane this weekend. So plus 7,500. That's quite, these are Hail Mary bets. That's why we're only throwing McChicken dollar amounts on these guys. But excellent payouts for these types of odds that we're seeing.
100% agree with the McChicken logic right there. JHN, I do think that he certainly has equipment that can at least be competitive in order to get him in position if all goes right. Legacy keeps improving their cars every season as it is and getting better and better, and it's been showing. So I do think that if you want to throw something on JHN, I would not be against that either. There's only one other driver that's just below him that I'd even consider throwing him a chicken on, and that could be Allmendinger, and he's at 80-1 odds.
Oh, yeah, and he'll have some probably pretty good starting positions, so I don't mind that either.
There's a couple of deeper options that I think I like there too. Even Eric Jones at 55-1.
Yeah.
Ty Gibbs, he's at 50-1 this week.
Maybe we'll turn it into a McFlurry type of play and just flurry our bets amongst some of these options.
You even mentioned Connor Zilic earlier too. He's 45-1.
Yeah, that's another. I mean, look, this is an up and coming Cup driver. Obviously, he's seen the success. Like, that's an excellent payout for a guy like that who, we're waiting to break onto the scene. This could be the week.
After all, Zilic does actually have a previous Cup start at Atlanta too. He drove in the second race last year and started in the 30s, finished in 11th. So that right there is noteworthy. And one other note to add about the Christopher Bell call there too. I certainly do not mind that one bit too. We forget that he's actually the defending winner of this race from 1 year ago. So that right there is telling.
And I just feel like he's going to go overlooked a little bit. Especially with, if I just look at this, I don't think I'm betting on this, but the winning manufacturer bets, Toyota is the underdog. So it's Chevy at plus 110. You've got Ford at plus 185 and Toyota at plus 280.
Yeah. Mainly because they think that Toyotas aren't going to show much speed on this track compared to the other two manufacturers.
Shocking to me that Chevy is the front runner over Ford, though.
I would say it's not surprising considering that since Atlanta went to this configuration, Chevy does have the most race wins individually, but it's not by much over Ford.
Yeah, I would think those odds would be more similar. That's throwing me off.
Also, Christopher Bell is currently the betting favorite for the books as top Toyota as well at plus 320.
There you go. So I like that. Elliott. So it's like, Chase Elliott's kind of the favorite, but, there's not really a favorite in my opinion for this week.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there. I'm not really playing a lot of these manufacturer-based bets. I don't think this is the week in order to do that kind of thing. Now, if you ask me next week, I might have some for you then.
I like it. I'm going to probably stay away from those as well.
Yeah. But that's going to do it for it this week. We are going to close out the show right here. This has been the RaceGuru Thunder Hour. Any parting words for us before we go on to Atlanta, Mark?
No, I think this is probably another track to play light, but not as light as last week. So feel free to just up the buy-in a little bit if you would like, or if you want to partake. I'm still spreading out my exposure. I'm doing multiple lineups because you can easily roster drivers who fall in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then feel free to diversify your investments by rolling out a betting plan to coincide with your DFS plays and get just kind of make sure that you're getting exposure in all the right places. If it's going to be high owned in DFS, bet on them. If they're going to be low owned in DFS, play them in DFS, and that's generally how it works out and how you can be very successful to get leverage in DFS tournaments while also minimizing your risk.
Love it. Absolutely love the strategy call right there. That's going to be it for us over at RaceGuru Thunder Hour and a half, because we went about a half there this week. So thank you everyone that's been able to tune in, but able to watch us go at it and talk some NASCAR this week. And we will be seeing you next week, and we'll be bringing Rich Mileto back into the fold. Then he could not make the show tonight, but we're still missing Rich. So we'll see him next week, and we will see you all next week for there are racing action at COTA and at St. Petersburg. That's going to be real exciting. So
I'll be giving the live play-by-play on that one.
I'm looking forward to that. It's always interesting to see the trucks at a new track. So
road course.
That. Road course racing. All right. See you all next week.